Yo, what's up guys, my name is Mr. Freeze2244 and welcome to another Returnal video. In this video I'll be showing you some tips and pointers for the second boss fight of the game called Ixion, and I'll be showing you some vital tips that you'll need to help take on this boss, which is a very difficult boss overall. It's a little bit more difficult than Frike, and it's one of the harder bosses in the game in my opinion. So let's take you through some of the tips and some of the important things that you're going to need for this particular boss fight, and show you some tactics on what to do to fight the boss. So let's go. Let's get into it. So throughout the first biome and the second biome leading up to Ixion, you'll be able to pick up some of these artifacts. The artifacts are completely random, but you want to make sure you grab every one that you possibly can. Some of them will cost you oblites, so it depends on how powerful that particular artifact is. That's going to help you, and how many oblites you have. I pick up a number of them throughout my play session all the way up to Ixion. I have my suits quite far upgraded though, so you won't be able to access some of these areas unfortunately, but these are some of the examples of some really good artifacts here. Wound Sinkers, which is going to help with a lot of low health enemies that will just basically destroy them. These areas you'll be able to get, like I said, but these artifacts that you pick up and these upgrades are going to be random, whatever you pick up. But one particular artifact I do highly recommend you picking up. When you get to a store, when you get a choice between 4 things to spend your oblites on, you want to be looking out for the astronaut, because that astronaut is going to give you another life. So if you do happen to die during a boss fight, you need to make sure that you have that astronaut, because then you'll come back to life at the exact same point in time, and you'll get a big huge boost in health as well on top of that when you do come back. But here's some of the examples of all the artifacts that I'm picking up. One thing you are going to need for the boss fight as well, if you are taking a lot of damage from the boss fight, I highly recommend you bring along some health integrity boosts in your consumables. Buy some of those, they are quite cheap. I think there's 100 for the minor health boost, and the major one I think is 150. So do invest your oblites on health integrity upgrades if you are struggling to deal with this boss, and because he has some attacks that are really annoying. But the rifle I recommend you using is the Tachyomatic Carbine, and the perks you want to be looking out for is Rising Pitch. That is a very good perk for it. It will increase the rate of fire over time, and it's a very powerful weapon for this particular boss fight. So that's the weapon I would recommend. Obviously getting your weapon proficiency up as high as possible before this boss fight is really important, because it gives you an increase in damage and output and better perks as well with the gun. But Rising Pitch is really important when it comes to the Tachyomatic Carbine rifle, and this is what you're going to need to take on at this particular boss fight. So from the very start, I highly recommend you always using your alt fire and running around in the circle and keeping your distance away from Ixion himself. With these blue projectiles, they'll come at you in a circular manner, so make sure you run around it, otherwise you can just dash through it. These projectiles will be firing at you as well, but just keep blasting away, keeping your distance away from Ixion, and keep hitting towards his stomach. If these blue projectiles get too close, just make sure you use your dash to your advantage, otherwise it's going to be a little bit difficult to outrun them, especially when you're trying to shoot at the same time. Make sure you take advantage of your alt fire as well. Some alt fires are better than others, but again, like I said, when it comes to these weapons, it's a bit of a gamble really when it comes to what particular alt fire you get and what particular perks you get. But running around in a circle, always keep moving, never stay still, ever, pretty much, because that's always going to be a bad thing, because there's so many projectiles that is firing at you. But once we get through the first stage, which is relatively simple compared to the second stage, I think the second evolution of this Ixion boss is the hardest, because this attack here, right here, he will jump down and come over through this, do like a circular damage grid. You can dash through that or jump over it. With this blue one, again, you can do the same thing, just jump over it or dash through it. Again, it's a little bit difficult because there's a lot of stuff that's firing at you at exactly the same time, so it is a little bit tricky to avoid all of it. So just do what you can, jump through it or dash through it, and try and keep your distance as well at the same time. Again, take advantage of your alt fire, but this particular attack here, when he does it like a sweeping manner like this, you want to try and dash through the blue zone when he's trying to do that. It's very difficult to do, but as long as you get through this stage, you'll be able to beat this boss no problem. But this is the tricky part. You can't really do much damage to him while he's doing this. You just need to make sure you try and avoid this as best as you possibly can, and I would highly recommend you trying to just stay away from him and trying to dash through that blue wall of a projectile that he shoots at you. When it comes to this, he will presume with his regular attack of shooting the blue and red projectiles at you, but the tricky part of this particular boss fight is that sweeping motion that he did just a little bit earlier. These particular projectiles aren't too difficult to deal with. Again, utilize your dash quite a lot and keep your distance when it comes to trying to avoid all these projectiles. Again, it's only the points where he jumped up in the air and just bashes on the floor, and those little different things are the most difficult part about this. Again, when it comes to these faster blue projectiles that you just shot at you there, the smaller ones, you need to use your dash there on all those situations because you're not going to outrun it. With these particular ones, you can easily avoid. Just keep your eye on the screen. You don't have to be pumping in with rounds all the time. Just make sure you don't get hit. If you are on 5 adrenaline, you want to make sure you don't get hit so you can do as much damage as possible and get that reload in as quick as possible as well. Because learning how to do... Again, here comes the weird attack again. It's a little tricky to avoid. So if you don't take care of that second form quickly, he's going to basically keep doing this same attack after a certain period of time. And like I said, it's one of the most trickiest attacks to deal with. I particularly don't like it, really. But the third phase of this boss fight isn't as difficult as the first two, in my opinion. I think it was supposed to be harder, but the fact that he stays still for most of it, it seems a little bit simple. A little bit more simple, anyway. He will fire a lot more stuff at you, of course. That's where the difficulty comes into it. But when it comes to this phase here, you can just keep jumping over these and dashing through it. Either one is fine. But because you've got multiple of these blue circles now, you can't just dash through both of them. You've got to jump at least once. Keep utilising your overload as well. Again, with the red circles, you can dash through those. But the circles are coming a lot faster now. Take your health consumable if you need to as well. And again, keep remembering to keep your distance, because you'll make avoiding these projectiles a lot more easier, especially the red circles. I got stuck there, my bad. These particular attacks aren't that dangerous, really. But when he dashes at you here, make sure you do use your dash, because he will do a melee. It's again trying to keep your distance away from him. You don't want to get a meleeed attack by these bosses. They do so much damage. So keep running away, keep running around in a circle. Try and avoid those circles especially. See, if you get too close, it's very difficult to avoid that red circle of death. Very difficult. This is where it helps when you get health consumable to give you a little bit of a boost. And even if you do die, you've got that astronaut as well to help you out. If you haven't got the astronaut though, don't worry too much about it. Just try and do what you can. Like I said, this is one of the longest, actually, as well. One of the longest and most difficult bosses in the game. But if you can get through this boss, you can get through any of them, in my opinion. But once you have completed it, you'll get a nice suit upgrade as well, which is really nice. But overall, that's how you beat Ixion. If you have any questions about this particular boss fight, let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them as best as I can. I will be doing more of these boss guides in the future as well. Which one is the next one? Is it Nemesis? I can't remember his name now. But we'll be getting on to the third one at some point this week. So make sure you are subscribed for that if you are struggling with that. Drop a like on this video if it helped you out. And let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. What you thought about this boss fight and what you don't like about him. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.